Hello, everybody. I'm Franz Hochstrasser, CEO and co-founder of Raise Green, and I'm excited to welcome you to our 7th Investor Day. This morning, we awaken heated, heartened, and hopeful. Heated, like 100 million Americans who have been under extreme heat advisory over the past week, and like the wildfires that are already ravaging the Western United States. And as climate impacts ravage communities across the country and the world, both high energy costs and from fossil fuel use and the growing impacts of climate change pose a significant burden to every American and really every person on the planet. And more than 195 million Americans are alarmed or concerned about this problem, about the climate crisis, according to the Yale Program on Climate Communications. But today we're heartened with the taste of a hard-fought legislative success in Congress, which now appears so close to becoming a reality. For a year and a half, advocates across the climate movement have fought and clawed and cried and cheered through the roller coaster of emotions around a bill in Congress that would accelerate climate solutions faster than the pace of the problem. And the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, introduced yesterday, promises to be the largest clean energy investment in US history and to bring down consumer energy costs, increase American ingenuity and energy security, and substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Those historic investments, if they come into reality, included in this bill, would put the US on a path toward 40% emissions reductions by 2030 and would represent the single biggest investment in US history. But that bill is not done yet. We've been close before, so let's not count our chickens before they hatch. However, today I'm especially hopeful because the clean energy transition is already underway. And that's thanks to you. Investors like you, loyal supporters like you have created a rising tide of change that continues to swell. And today it's our distinct pleasure at Raise Green to share 4 of these heroic entrepreneurs and clean energy leaders at the front lines of the clean energy transition, who are working every day to solve this climate crisis. These leaders are innovating, they're deploying carbon cutting technologies block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, dollar by dollar, and opening up access and building community while they do it. So if Congress gets their work done on this bill, it will be an enormous boost to the clean energy work that these folks are already doing, but they're not waiting. And you shouldn't either, you don't need to wait. We're offering you the ability to stand with these entrepreneurs to power their work that will power our future and make a healthy return while you're at it. Now they will not today talk about any specific returns or terms in their offerings. You can find all of that at invest.raisegreen.com, but they will tell the story of what they're working on and why it's so important. And we hope you enjoy it. So every dollar invested into these real world climate solutions and companies makes a difference. And we are here with you today to share that opportunity. So together, we're excited to work with you on making the world a more healthy, just, and sustainable place. And I'll turn it over to Ben, who's our marketing director here at Raise Green, who will be our MC today to introduce our first speakers.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Franz. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Let's get going. Today, each issuer will share the story of their company. It's your chance to hear directly from issuers about how they're tackling the climate crisis head on. First off, some background on who we are and what to expect today. We are a US-based funding portal with offices at Greentown Labs in Boston, Massachusetts, and are registered at the SEC and FINRA to sell private exempt securities. We bring investors and companies together on our marketplace and have financed nearly $5 million in climate solutions since launching in July 2020. As the funding portal, we perform due diligence on each of the offerings before they go live. We do not provide tax, accounting, legal, or financial advice. We encourage you to review the materials, do your own research, and seek your own counsel before making any investment decision. So today, representatives from our projects will speak for roughly 8 minutes each. If you have any questions, please post them to the Q&A module. They'll be answered after each issuer has a chance to present. If you have project-specific questions that don't get covered today, please log in to invest.raisegreen.com and ask on the forum page of the company's offering. General investor inquiries can be directed to investors@raisegreen.com. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first presenter today, Bert Hunter of the Connecticut Green Bank. The Connecticut Green Bank is our nation's first banking institution dedicated to the transition from dirty to clean energy. Bert, let's kick things off.
Great, good to be with you, Ben. Thanks so much. Yes, we are the first. If you can go to the first slide, thanks. Yeah, we are the first green bank in the country. But as Franz said at the top of this Investor Day, there is an Inflation Reduction Act that is working its way through Congress, hopefully quickly, because included in that is $27 billion for a climate accelerator, climate and clean energy technology accelerator. So with that, we hope to see many more green banks like the Connecticut Green Bank appear throughout the country. I think there are about 20 or so that are in various stages of development and deployment. So that's all to the good. So about the Green Liberty Notes, these follow on from our award-winning Green Liberty bonds that were first issued in 2020 in recognition of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and to engage what we call citizen investors to work with our green bank to combat climate change. They did this in two ways. First, for those bonds that we issued in 2020, we lowered the cost to invest to $1,000. Typically, that will be sold in $5,000 or $10,000 increments. And second, we gave the citizen investors a priority over larger institutional funds. So they had first dibs on these bonds. Those bonds have been a huge success for us. The second bond we issued last year was oversubscribed 4 times over with nearly $100 million in bids for the 25 million in bonds that were available. But we wanted to reach even more investors, those for whom even $1,000 might be a challenge to become part of the green economy movement. With the Raise Green platform and our Green Liberty Notes, we're able to bring the level of investment down to a small fraction of our $1,000 Green Liberty bonds, down to even $100. And that enables us to work on climate change, as you see in this slide here. Next slide, please. So our Green Liberty bonds help to go to support some of these activities that you see here with small businesses. Every dollar raised from these Green Liberty Notes supports the Green Bank's financing programs like the Small Business Energy Advantage Program run by one of Connecticut's utilities, Eversource. This program helps small businesses, nonprofits, and state and local governments to fund energy efficiency improvements to reduce their energy costs with a 0% loan. With the cost of energy having gone up so dramatically in recent months, I'm sure you've seen that in the headlines, the need for this program couldn't be more urgent. We worked with Amalgamated Bank to develop a financing facility for these loans, which has dropped the cost of funds by more than 75%. Which allows Eversource to use the budget dollars saved to fund more energy efficiency programs. Raise Green has helped our Green Bank to provide even greater access to this green economy for everyone. We're really excited about the platform and our Green Liberty Notes. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to say in conclusion was, these notes have been very successful. This is our third issue of Green Liberty Notes. Already, we have issued more than $300,000 worth of notes. They are designed to be like CD alternatives, certificate of deposit alternatives, and although they don't come with a FDIC protection, we consider them to be quite secure, as you can read about it in all of the materials that are on the Raise Green platform. So we thank you for your consideration of our investment. Please come support the Connecticut Green Bank and small business in Connecticut. And I look forward to your questions when all the other presenters are done with their presentations. Thanks very much.
And thank you, Bert. Great to have you on another Raise Green Investor Day. So next up, we will have Crystal Hansley of WeSolar. WeSolar Energy is a minority and women-owned social impact firm dedicated to expanding access to community solar while reducing energy bills in low-income communities. Crystal, we're excited to hear your story.
Thanks, Ben. And thank you to the Raise Green team. Just special highlight to Franz and everything that you guys are working on, just making sure that small businesses and minority leaders in this space have an opportunity to funding. Less than 1% of venture capital go to minorities and startup businesses. And so just these are the type of opportunities that really accelerate the green movement, but also bring the diversity and inclusion that's needed in so many ways. So thank you guys. So community solar addresses many of today's challenging climate issues, as well as accessibility to what that means for communities that are traditionally left out of the climate change movement. For one, just backing up a little bit, what is community solar? Community solar is the latest vertical in the solar space, meaning the average household that would like to get solar do not have to put solar on their roof. So for millennials and for people who do not own a home, or even boomers and folks that's looking to downsize, would not have access to solar energy. And with 22 states now, with New Mexico being the latest states to have some community solar legislation and a pilot program, this really allows a lot of opportunity for communities and underrepresented groups to really participate in this transition. As you can see, along with just inflation and rising costs of food, energy burden really impacts minority communities and frontline communities. And also those are the communities that get hit hardest by climate solutions, by just climate change. And WeSolar, we're offering a seat at the table. So now those frontline communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change can now be a participant and receive some of the economic resiliencies, like the savings, to really assist with the energy burden. Over 20 to 30% of underrepresented groups and minority communities spend a lot of their take-home pay to high energy costs, which is only looking to go up in the next few months. And WeSolar is a solution where we can lock in the savings and utilize a lot of the state policies, similar to one of the previous speaker with the Connecticut Green Bank. We are not waiting for the federal government. That will only help us for the ITC credit specifically. In the budget, it looks like there can be a 50% ITC credit for community solar, as well as $60 billion being carved out for low-income communities and communities that face a higher burden of pollution and disproportionately are impacted by pollution. So that's really promising, but without that, community solar is still moving forward. And WeSolar just finds itself right at the vortex of a lot of the solutions and state policies that's already in place. And it's only looking to grow about 700% in the next 5 years, where there will be a 5 gigawatt target at the federal level, but also a lot of private investment money going into the sector as well. So again, WeSolar, we're able to just solve multiple problems by not only bringing diversity and inclusion to a sector where it's just not heavily represented by women and people of color, with WeSolar being Baltimore-based and minority and women-led, but also making sure that we bring community and local groups to the table as far as developing and making sure that the economic resilience of the savings is also targeted into the community and people that really need those benefits the most. Next slide. So right now, we're looking to scale our operations. WeSolar have 2 revenue streams where we are developing, operating, and owning our solar farms, as well as working as a third party vendor or contractor with solar developers that's looking to partner with a grassroots organization like WeSolar to really be the community partner in their deals. And so at the moment, we have over 100 megawatts of community solar acquisition marketing contracts that we're looking to fulfill urgently right now in real time, as well as we've secured our very first power purchase agreement with a state medical system that has over 150 locations and is also looking to procure more energy from us. So yeah, again, WeSolar, we just find ourselves at the front line of energy justice and just leveraging the technology of solar and the latest vertical of community solar, leveraging community and of course policy. That's how we're able to really impact change and to deliver communities and put them at the forefront of what's happening in the climate transition, and just making sure that there's no one left behind on all sides of the, I would say, the cycle, whether it's from financing and having community investors, as well as making sure that communities of color are also off-takers. And so that's the heart and focus of WeSolar's mission, is knowing that not only are we the off-takers, but we also have a chance to ride all of the upside as well in investment opportunities like this. And for more, please visit the Raise Green platform. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Next up, we will have Alex Blum of Applied Bioplastics. Applied Bioplastics aims to flip plastic manufacturing on its head with their plant-based plastics that are as durable as legacy counterparts at cost parity. Alex, let's hear it.
Thanks, everyone. At Applied Bioplastics, we are decarbonizing the plastic industry and changing the future of polymers. Plastic is essential to modern society, and despite many efforts to reduce, reuse, and recycle, humans are using more plastic than ever before. Besides the obvious trash problem, a major downside of this is that plastic currently accounts for about 7% of annual carbon emissions, and this is expected to grow to 20% by 2050. So that's huge. There are efforts to temper this demand through reducing, reusing, and recycling, as well as plant-based alternatives. However, unfortunately, most of these are limited primarily to packaging, leaving 2/3 of the market virtually untouched. So how do we improve the sustainability of durable plastic items that these efforts don't address, like containers, furniture, appliance housing, building materials, and transportation components? At Applied Bioplastics, we have commercialized a platform technology that allows us to produce durable biocomposites that are mechanically identical to the plastic they're replacing, enabling their use in standard manufacturing processes. We've been through several internal and external plastic molding trials and know with certainty that our current plastic polypropylene can cover 80% of what it replaces. We're also working on a polyethylene. Initial testing shows that we should have a similar breadth of applicability. So our durable polymers incorporate sustainable plant fibers available all over the world, which reduces their net carbon emissions compared to the incumbents. Because both the plant fiber and our proprietary processing technology are inexpensive, we can win against the big petrochemical players on price today, while also slashing carbon emissions for hundreds of thousands of products, while also not having a cost to switch for the end customer. So speaking of that, our solution is easy to adopt, for both companies that produce and use plastics, because we built our technology around the existing production infrastructure. The twin screw extruder that makes plastic today, well, you make our plastic in that machine, and the injection molding machine that injection molders use to make those components I mentioned earlier, same thing. Just put the pellets in the hopper, it works just like it should. So there is no cost to adopt, both for licensees as well as end customers. Next slide, please. Applied Bioplastics is the hottest brand in composites, which helps us hire. We've won nearly every industry award we've entered in the last 2 years. And the last time I put out a job rec, I got 1,400 applications in the first 48 hours. Those who know that Applied Bioplastics is the future of polymers. We've built a sales pipeline for our thermoplastic product that contains nearly 40 global brands with multiple paid pilots underway with some of the largest manufacturers in the world, including nascent partnerships with several potential licensees of the petrochemical suppliers. We've advanced $90 million of our $400 million pipeline into the paid pilot phase. And it should be obvious why we're seeing so much traction after only 3 years of work. We have a solution that meets every need of the current market while solving an issue that is top of mind for nearly every major manufacturer. We've taken away the cost of adoption, the barriers to scale, the limited feedstocks required by specialty plastic producers, and the cost difference between alternatives and the incumbents at a time when most manufacturers are making public commitments to reduce their environmental footprint. Guys, we have a tiger by the tail, but we need your help to put it in a headlock. We're currently raising in order to get signed commitments from several of our prospects. We have 38 immediately seizable opportunities that span industry and manufacturing. This is, of course, a complex handshake type of sale. And while we recently poached an amazing head of sales from a major petrochemical player, we need to hire the rest of her department. Better yet, if anyone watching this joins us, you are not going to be alone. We have soft commits for a significant part of our round already and are gaining momentum in both sales and fundraising. We're changing the future of plastics, and I want everyone watching to reach out if you're interested in purchasing, licensing our technology, or being part of our team or investing. Join us and see just how sustainable plastics can be.
Alex, thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. Next up, and last but certainly not least, we will have Santiago Rios of Stak Mobility. Stak Mobility is bringing efficient EV charging to dense urban areas through innovative architectural design. Let's hear it, Santiago.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Santiago Rios. I am co-founder and chief design officer of Stak Mobility. At Stak, we are bringing unprecedented scale and sustainability to the parking and EV charging industries by leveraging the latest in vertical parking automation and charging and energy storage technologies, with a particular focus on urban centers where land is scarce and expensive, and power and charging availability is often limited. As I'm sure you're all aware, it's imperative for the US to meet net zero emissions by 2050 if we're going to have a prayer of keeping global warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius to avoid the most catastrophic effects of climate change. In the US, meeting that goal hinges largely on our love of cars. It is the most dominant form of transportation by far, and so much so that the transportation sector accounts for 30% of total US greenhouse gas emissions. So it's critical that we electrify our vehicles as quickly as possible. And while there's been significant investment and commitments from government entities, businesses, car manufacturers to electrify the fleets, a consistent barrier to this transition is the scalable and convenient access to charging infrastructure. This is especially difficult in urban environments where multifamily housing is prominent and access to a private off-street parking space is rare and expensive. It's also traditionally for underserved communities a very particular problem as well, due to their disinvestment in public transportation and also power infrastructure required to facilitate this transition in those communities. So these communities have been essentially locked out of participating in the clean transportation movement, and it all just comes into sharper focus when you consider that 89% of the US population will be living in urban centers by 2050. So at Stak, we aim to tackle this problem head on by combining 3 components into our solution. One is the vertical parking system that you see in the image. We call it the carousel. It is designed to be a fully self-service machine that does not require an attendant. It takes about the footprint of 2 parking spaces, and we can take those 2 and convert them into 14. It reduces parking footprints by up to 65%, and can, in some cases, increase parking capacities up to 700%. It has completely transformed parking from being this integrated and sort of heavy infrastructure to a more malleable, flexible, and mobile parking facility. So in the sense that it's independently operated, they come in varying sizes and can hold up anywhere from sedan vehicles up to Sprinter vans. It's flexible in the sense that it's not confined to specific dimensions that a normal typical parking deck would be confined to, and can be arranged in different different configurations. It's also mobile in the sense that these are erected in days, can be disassembled, relocated, reused at other sites, depending on demand. The second key component is the integration of the EV charging and the battery storage system. So the EV component, we have a patent pending energy distribution system that allows us to electrify these carousels and provide chargers at every single space. So in the image that you see here, the two carousel systems fit within a footprint of 4 parking spaces, and where you would normally be able to charge 4 vehicles, you can now charge 28 vehicles. So this is bringing a level of scale that we are very excited about, and also keeping an eye on the future with vehicle to grid technology that allows for bidirectional flow of power, not just from the utility to the vehicles, but from the vehicles back to the grid to supplement it during peak demand hours. And then on the battery side, you have due to the scale of the facilities that we're envisioning of deploying, there's typically not enough power infrastructure to support that. So it's critical that we have batteries there to supplement, and not only to reduce operational costs, but to provide an additional revenue stream to sell that energy back to the grid during peak demand. The third and final component is we tie all of this into a mobile software platform that gives drivers a unique and convenient parking experience that allows them to register, apply for subscriptions, locate available parking, access their space, park and retrieve their vehicles, all through the mobile platform. And then on the back end, there is a CRM component that allows the operators of those facilities to have a full view of their parking operations and allow remote troubleshooting in cases where a user may need assistance. So the market we're looking at in total is a $100 billion market. There's opportunities on the B2B and the B2C side. Currently on the B2B side, to date, we have 10 projects across 7 different states that have been executed in some of the most highly regulated markets in the US. We have 2 additional ones coming online. One that you see here in the image is in Gainesville, Florida, that has the carousel plus the mobile software experience that's due to come live in the next month. And then in Pittsburgh, where we have the first of its kind, combining the full suite of carousel plus charging plus mobile, which we're excited about. That should be coming online in November. We also have several exciting projects in the pipeline, including deals with government entities, Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies that are looking to electrify their fleets and even have mandates in place to electrify as early as 2030, 100% of their fleets. On the B2C side, we're looking at opportunities to launch Stak branded sites that are in strategically located areas, targeting multifamily housing and also underserved communities. We are a year into diligence with the Department of Energy's Loan Program Office to secure 9-digit project financing to deploy 30 sites across the next 5 years. Next slide, please. A little bit about our team. Diallo Powell, he is our CEO. He is, his background is in management consulting. He is a serial entrepreneur with 20 plus years of experience, and with his latest social purpose health tech company that exited in 2020. He is very focused on social driven and climate tech. Scott is our chief of product and strategic partnerships. If anyone's been in New York, you've seen the Link NYC deployments that combine cell phone charging, 5G wireless, and advertising infrastructure that was acquired by Alphabet, which is Google's parent company. Myself, I'm an architect by trade. I have 8+ years experience on design and construction administration, and 5+ years of experience with automated parking in particular, working with architects and developers to integrate these systems into their properties and provide additional value for those properties. And then we have Hitesh, who has actual experience with vehicle to grid deployments, was worked with Tesla, and is a professor at Carnegie Mellon. We currently are seeking $500,000 to launch our flagship installation at a site in Brooklyn in partnership with a large battery and energy storage operator. If this project is successful, we anticipate this leading to several more sites. They have 12 coming online next year, with another 70 in the pipeline. So with that, I'd like to thank you again for your time, and hope that you're able to join us in this mission to electrify our fleets.
Thank you so much, Santiago, and a big thanks to all of our issuers for their pitches today. We're going to roll over into our Q&A aspect of Investor Day. We have a couple of questions in the chat, and then a couple that came in before our webinar started. So to start off, we have a question for Applied Bioplastics. Someone asked, how do bioplastics differ from petrochemical plastics in terms of biodegradation? And that one's for you, Alex.
Thanks, Franz. So Applied Bioplastics makes durable polymers. For instance, you wouldn't want your car dashboard to biodegrade or your airplane bulkhead to degrade because it got wet, right? I mean, that would be really bad. So we differentiate ourselves from the majority of bioplastics companies. You can think of us more as a co-feedstock for petrochemical-based plastics, recycled plastics, and other bio-based plastics. Essentially, what we do for all three of those categories is make them cheaper and greener, right? So beyond that, of course, because our plastics do sequester carbon at twice the rate of normal petrochemical plastics, degradation actually would release that stored carbon. So it betrays our value proposition if our plastics quickly degrade. Again, because we're focused on things like toys, tools, technology, transportation, automotive, aerospace, those sorts of things, we're not looking to create a biodegradable, right? So the biodegradable means it's going to degrade within the first year after it's been produced, or the first 2 years. Now, all of that being said, our plastic does degrade 10 times faster than normal plastics, meaning it won't be around for 1,000 or 2,000 years, more like 100 to 200. Now, this is exciting because of the advances in landfill methane capture for power. This is not fully deployed yet, but in 100 years, it absolutely will be. So by adding more biomass that will be releasing methane rather than carbon in the landfill, we're excited to replace that non-degrading petro content in landfills with more bio-based content, because that raises the value of those landfills, and raises the amount of energy that's able to be captured in situ.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. Hopefully that answers the question. Next question is for Bert of Connecticut Green Bank. Bert, can you talk a bit more about the SBEA loan program recipients? Who are they, and how impactful is this program for them?
So SBEA participants can be small businesses, everything from restaurants to retail, even includes municipalities, not-for-profits, think of a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club, something like that, as long as the demand for energy does not exceed 200 kilowatts. I mean, that's the cutoff of the program. And it's very impactful. What it does is it allows these businesses to reduce their energy use through the use of these 0% loans. And so it cuts their energy use, it replaces it for the 4-year period. Typically, that's how long most of the loans are. For that 4-year period, it's designed to be cash neutral during that period, or cash positive. And then after that, the savings persist, and the small business gets the benefit of the full savings effect on their energy bill every month.
Very nice. Thank you, Bert. Next question is for Crystal of WeSolar. Crystal, can you tell us a bit more about the neighborhoods in Baltimore where you're bringing community solar? How much relief will these utility discounts provide neighborhood residents? Oh, look out, you're on mute. Hey, Crystal, we can't hear you for some reason.
Reconnecting, technical difficulties. Such
Now?
as, there you
Yeah.
are. Hey.
Fantastic.
So yeah, currently we have land lease options in Baltimore, and we're also working with local municipalities to locate sites that are not available to the public. So that really just shows the strength of our local ties, as well as some neighboring counties, municipalities. We're in talk with their Department of Housing executives over their departments to look at potential sites and who are also looking to collaborate with community solar. Right now, the savings for low-income families will range, obviously, depending on the project finance, anywhere between 10% to 25%, aiming closer to the 25% savings for all low-income families.
Wonderful, thank you. And while we have you up, we're going to just go straight into the next question, which is also for you. This one is in the chat. How is WeSolar different than other community models like Arcadia? Does it require participants to buy a certain number of solar units upfront and then over time receive the benefits and offset against a utility bill? For low to middle income participants, how does your model help broaden participation?
Yes, that's a really good question. So the way in which we differentiate ourselves from like some of the larger companies in this space is that we have a very unique lens, and that was really what was missing from some of the acquisition and marketing, as well as filling in the gaps of why there wasn't a lot of diversity, to be honest. And so we've identified just a lack of cultural competency to really connect with groups that are looking for solutions, but they just don't see the representation that looks like them. And so we offer just the real grassroots organization style of acquisition, not just what we would call bots and owning software. And a lot of the companies in the space have software and really utilize more like mechanical operations to acquire like customers, where we believe to have like real boots on the ground and working with community-led organizations really builds the trust factor to really get at the heart of why we're seeing just communities missing the information and like closing that gap. So we make sure that a lot of the communities that don't typically have access to the information is broadened. So that's how we're looking to like broaden like who actually has access to community solar.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Our next question is for Santiago of Stak Mobility. The question is, the federal government has a goal of 500,000 EV charging stations. Can you tell us a bit more about the market and how quickly it is growing?
Yes, absolutely. So that 500,000 goal is, it's looking very unlikely to be achieved unless we really scale our infrastructure. Right now, we're looking on current trajectory to be falling about 200,000 plugs short of that goal if things continue business as usual. There is a lot of traction on the EV adoption in in terms of EV ownership. I know that recently an article came out that 5% of all vehicles are now electric, which is consistent with the paradigm shifts in other countries where it was where the adoption rates really accelerated after that 5% mark.
Awesome. Maybe to add on quickly, Santiago, I saw some reporting, at least, and in the bill language from yesterday, that it looks like the electric vehicle tax credit is part of this package. So how will that, I think it's $7,000 or so per EV bought. How will that impact some of your market forecasts and outlook?
Right. Yeah, it's still something we're trying to model, and we lean on sort of the Department of Energy has good data around available chargers and the rate of chargers, depending on whether they're fast chargers or level 2 chargers, where they're located, what are the markets that still have deficiencies. And I just to add a little bit more to that, if we're looking a little bit more into the future with the vehicle to grid technology, vehicles are now being manufactured to have that opportunity to provide energy back to the grid. So now you can start looking as an electric vehicle as a potential revenue source where you can opt into an energy marketplace and sell some of that battery back to the grid. And cars are parked 98% of the time. So it's just further incentivizes someone to invest in an electric vehicle.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next question is for Bert. Bert, can you share a little bit more about what Green Bond Certified means for your offering?
Sure. What it means is that the uses of the proceeds from our Green Liberty notes, as well as our Green Liberty bonds, have been verified by a third-party verifier, in our case, Kestrel Verifiers, that has looked at the use of the funding that we're raising from these two programs, and importantly, what we're talking about here, the Green Liberty notes, that it's being used for the intended purposes of reducing carbon emissions in our state. So it's fully verified, and we include that verification as part of the package of materials that is on the Raise Green platform. We think that's very important. It's an added cost, but we think it actually provides comfort to investors who are looking to be sure that their money is being used for green purposes.
Excellent. Maybe building on that theme, over to you, Alex. I have a question about how does the bioplastics polymer technology that you all have developed work to actually reduce emissions when you compare it to conventional plastics?
Certainly. So there's several pieces to this. The first one is the reduction in petrochemical plastics that just go into the final product, right? So our lowest loading is 20% natural fiber, and our highest loading is 70% natural fiber. So when you think about the amount of carbon intensity that comes from making petrochemical plastics, usually a good rule of thumb is 2 kilograms of CO2 for every kilogram of plastic produced, right? And that involves the actual drilling and extraction, the refining, the power required to refine, and the shipping of the plastic from one place to the next. So with our carbon negative feedstock additive, essentially what we're doing is we're cutting out 20 to 70% of that carbon because we're removing 20 to 70% of that plastic. The next piece is that, of course, plants are carbon negative. So the ability to use cellulose fiber from all over the world and dozens of different species means that all of those plants are taking in carbon and sequestering it both in the ground and in the plant itself. and releasing oxygen. So we don't use forest products. We use non-forest products grown water efficiently on marginal land, usually in emerging economies at fair trade prices. And so, not only are we supporting local economies, we are also taking something that is inherently carbon negative and adding it to something that is inherently carbon positive in a large proportion. So those are the two main ways. The third main way here is that, that carbon that is embodied in that plant material, it stays there, right? So as I mentioned in my previous answer, we're making durable polymers. These durable polymers are going to be around for 100 to 200 years. So that carbon that gets trapped in the plants, normally the way the plant cycle looks is, a plant takes in CO2, releases oxygen. Then when the plant dies, it releases that carbon actually in the form of methane, which is worse for the environment, is a greenhouse gas in and of itself. So we're preventing the release of that methane by preserving the cellulose within our plastics. So those are the three main ways that we are substantially different and can offer, 50+% reduction in CO2 when it comes to using plastics.
Incredible. Truly incredible.
Hopefully it's a little credible.
Oh, it sounds very credible. Just amazing, I will say. I'll rephrase. Ben, it looks like we got another question for Stak, and then I actually have one more for Crystal. So you want to do the Stak one first?
Absolutely. So for Santiago, how do you address pain points for multifamily property dwellers with management or HOA that have outdated thinking and are ill-equipped to see the benefits of setting up shared EV charging? There may be other issues like historical areas with restrictive regulations, or their buildings don't have a garage ready to set up charging. With your infrastructure, does the resident readily access it when not using their EV overnight?
Yes, so we are looking at strategically locating sites in close proximity to those developments. It's often difficult and very expensive to retrofit existing developments with our solution. So what we're trying to do is locate those areas with very little access to private off-street parking and create an ecosystem for them to have access to a space and a charger so that they feel comfortable transitioning to an electric vehicle. As I mentioned in my presentation, we have different model types with certain heights and dimensions that can fit in a multitude of different sort of zoning regulations, also like building limitations as well. So there's a flexibility there that we can work within. And you touched on the historical districts. They actually look pretty positively on on the solution because they were built typically around the time before the car, so the infrastructure isn't there. And a lot of times those buildings get overlooked because tenants can't park. So if we can come in and on a very small space, give them the parking spaces that they need, then those buildings suddenly become more attractive to tenants and become more usable rather than just having buildings deteriorate.
Very nice. And then Franz, you have one more question for WeSolar.
Yeah. So Crystal, I think what you're doing is such a powerful example of the inclusive clean energy transition, how we actually convince individuals to make the switch to clean energy. And you have such a powerful story. I wonder if you would be willing to share with us and with investors a little bit more, maybe a story of someone that you are working with, or what it means to an individual customer to make that switch from conventional energy to community solar.
Yeah, I can just give you one example. When we look to create more opportunities, that means that we have to meet the people where they are. So one of our strategies is working with local churches. And obviously we make money when folks sign up to the community solar projects. But what happens is we also have to educate folks as we go along. And so it's also like a 2-for-1 in the sense that not only are people able to save money and also decarbonize their footprint, but they're also breaking down their bill and understanding how like their energy is billed to them for the very first time. And a lot of times what we've noticed was riders that was just on folks' bills, specifically in a lot of like low income families where they were paying 30 to 40, 50% markups, and they had no idea. So if we wasn't going into the community and working with those church partners and community leaders to bring community solar, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to notice that some of their parishioners, as well as the churches, were paying 50% above like market rate. And these are in census tracts. So they're below like 100 to 200% of the poverty line and already experiencing a lot of energy burden. So obviously we were able to save them not only the 25% for transitioning to community solar, but much more than that, because we identified that they had suppliers that was charging them above market rate, and they had no idea. They just would pay their bill. They didn't understand that they can now look to see the utility base rate and make sure that that number they were at, getting a fair deal and didn't have like some rider that was just sitting on there. And so I would say that that's just one of the takeaways, which gave me like the ammunition just to keep moving forward and making sure that more communities is just educated about just simple things that we take for granted in this space of just knowing what a kilowatt hour is and knowing how to read our energy bill. But a lot of communities who do not have access to that education is suffering because there are other groups that's taking advantage of them. And so that's just one of the things that we've been able to help while we also transition those communities to clean energy.
Wonderful. Yeah, the more you know. It's that is such powerful work. Thank you for sharing that. So I will point out that as we've been talking, there are a couple of the companies that you've heard from today currently have live investment opportunities. Others have live indications of interest opportunities. And just quickly, that means that those who have live investment opportunities, which are WeSolar and the Connecticut Green Bank, are actually taking investments now. So you can invest as little as $100 into those. And then you can indicate your interest in investing in Applied Bioplastics or Stak Mobility. I think Lauren has shared that link in the chat. So for anyone who is wanting to learn more and look into these opportunities in greater depth, if you have more questions, you can also ask those on the forum on the investment pages. So Ben, I think there's one question that we did want to ask every one of the participants for a reaction to, and this can be our kind of last go around question. So I'll let you ask it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just wanted to ask all of our issuers, why regulation crowdfunding? How does this kind of crowdsourced capital fit into your business model? Why is it something that is so important to your mission? And if we could start with maybe Alex of Applied Bioplastics, we'll go alphabetically here.
Certainly. Thank you guys for the opportunity today. And crowdfunding because, diversity, equity, and inclusion. For too long, petrochemicals and their sourcing have only benefited one group of people and hurt the rest of us, right? So, the 70% of all carbon emissions are made by 10 companies, and they're the people we're going after. They're the people that we're looking to make greener, but if they choose not to adopt our technology, they're the ones whose lunch money we're going to take, right? And we want you guys to come do that with us. And we want you guys to come do that with us because it's up to us as a society, as a community, as a world, to throw off the chains the capitalism at any cost, of the profit at any cost, right? We're going to make a lot of money as Applied Bioplastics, but our real mission here is to democratize the supply chain for polymers, and that goes into our financing as well. So with the crowd, with the opportunity for just about anybody to invest, we feel a lot better about where our capital is coming from, rather than kind of the big, the traditional kind of the greedy folks. Really, we want to see the community join us in decarbonizing our world.
Fantastic. Thank you. Proud to have you on the platform. Bert, if you wouldn't mind going next.
Yeah, sure. I spoke a little bit about this in my remarks, but really we want everyone to feel that they have a role that they can play in the energy transition. As Franz said at the top, the country is really on the verge of expending the most it ever has committed to this process in history. The time is now. We have to make more investment, and everyone needs to take a part in this. Some will do it by putting solar on their rooftops. Some will do it by changing from fuel oil to heat pumps. Others are already there and doing that, and many want to participate by actually investing in this space and helping us do that, and helping all of the presenters here do that. The Raise Green is just a fantastic platform for making that happen. We investigated a number of platforms, and the Raise Green platform is the most efficient way we found to reach everyone in a very low entry point of view. And we go all the way up to $25,000 with our offering. So everybody from $100 to $25,000, please join in.
Thank you for the kind words, Bert. Much appreciated. Santiago, if I could ask you to go next, then that'd be fantastic.
Sure. Yeah. The other two made really great points. I think we're in line with the goals here. I think just something to add, it also helps us gauge how the public is perceiving our solution as well. Helps us understand if we're on the right track, if we're providing the right solutions, and then allowing investors to partake in the transition to clean energy is important, so it stays on top of mind of them, and then they feel like they're contributing, and they do, they sort of change their habits and their ways in order to sort of put their money where their mouth is and keep it top of mind, and that's really the best way for us to completely transition and meet our goals, because it's going to take the buy-in from everyone. And I think crowdfunding is a great way to do that.
Awesome. Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. Santiago, Crystal, Bert, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to all of our investors as well for joining us. Fantastic presentations, great answers. We have just launched an investor referral program at Raise Green. So if you weren't already inspired enough, now by referring a friend, you can also get $25 towards your investment. And it's really a better time than ever to put your money to work, make your money do good. If you're interested in investing, you can create an investment account for free at invest.raisegreen.com. And you can back these climate heroes as well as others on the marketplace, folks that will be on the receiving end of the infusion of capital that this clean energy economy is precipitating. Join us, join this amazing group. We appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being part of Investor Day and for being part of the Raise Green community. We'll see you out there.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you next time.